what's going on. So a quick demonstration of the type of script that we want to make. I've got these two tracks here, chair type A, chair type B. This could be like Foley for a film or Foley for a video game. And what I want to achieve is I want to make regions for each of these assets. And I want the region name to be following the track name. And then I want each subsequent item to be numbered. So I'll demonstrate. This is one I prepared earlier. So we got chair type A1. So that's on the A track, A2, A3, and then B1, B2. So how I use that is if you, with the render to file, if you use this $region wildcard, you'll find it in the wildcards entry. What that does, you have to change it to all project regions. There we go. And you can see that it renders out each of those regions using the region name. So that's really cool. So that's something I do every day pretty much. That's my main method of creating assets for video games when I have them all laid out in a session like this. So that's a really handy one. You know, like I said, I work in video games. That's how I render assets for video games. It comes up in film and television as well. And potentially if you're working in music, maybe you want to do the same thing using samples. If you're building a sample library of piano keys or drum hits or something like that. Cool. So let's get into it. So we're going to make a new action, DL scripts, and we'll call it create region for all selected items, follow parent track name. Ooh, it's pretty wordy. The reason why I'm so specific is because we're going to do more of these. And sometimes you want to do something different. Sometimes you want to follow the item file name. Sometimes you just want a new name. You know, there's different needs for different scenarios, but this is the one following the parent track name. Cool. Right, cool. So we're going to wrap everything in our main function like we've done in most other videos, and then we're going to call it at the end of the file. All right, so how's this going to work? First of all, we're only looking at the selected items. We're not going to run the script on the whole session because maybe you do 80 assets, do the script, render them out, and then you keep working on it, in which case you only want to make new regions for the new regions. So yeah, we give the user a bit of control by limiting it to what is selected. So count selected items. And we've done this before, but just as like a little safety check, if there are no selected items, then don't proceed, right? Count selected items. That's good. All right. So in a previous video, we did look at for loops. So a for loop is when you are able to have a set of instructions and then you repeat those sets of instructions for as many times as you tell it to do so. And you can change things about the instructions on each iteration. Okay, so we're going to do that. So in a for loop, for as many items as are selected do get a reference to the item. Get a reference to the item's parent track. Well, let's change the order slightly. I guess the order doesn't really matter, but since we're talking about the item right now, get the start position of the item, get the length of the item, and then you can't actually directly get the end position of the item. However, you can calculate it by simply start position plus item length. So using these first two things, we can then get the end position. So that's cool. Now get a reference to the parent track. So what I mean by that, actually, you know, maybe you're not just, sorry, move that out of the way. Maybe you're not just rendering items that are on one track. Maybe you're mixing things together, you know, so like maybe you've got this sort of thing, you've got a few sub tracks or whatever it might be, you know. This is the parent track for these. So what we're going to do is we're only looking at the parent tracks. So it's going to make this region and it's going to render the whole thing there. That's what I mean by parent track. Cool. Get a reference to the parent track. Get the parent track name. All right, so one of the features of this script is that the assets are numbered. So if there are multiple items on track A, which there are, we want the region name to change and we want it to count upwards. So what we're going to do is we are going to keep track of a running index, we'll call it. We can initialize that now. So it starts off as 1, right? And we also want to keep track of the previous item's track name, right? Because if this track name is the same as the previous item's track name, then increase running index by 1. However, if we are now on a new track, I'll reword that. However, if this item is on a new track, then reset running index to 1. So the numbers start again, right? If we didn't do that, I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would just mean that if we're sort of here to here, we would go A1, A2, A3, and then B4, B5, which is a little weird. It's not ideal. So yeah, we're going to do it like this. So that is everything, I think. So then we will have had everything we need to create the region based on all of the above. So that's pretty sweet. All right, let's let's get into it. So we'll go to our favorite website, the Reaper API. To find it, Google Reaper API, and here we go. All right, so we want to count selected media items. We've done this before. It returns an integer, and it takes one argument, which is the project. And we are looking at the active project. All right, num of selected items equals Reaper dot count selected media items. So we want to create a reference to the active project. The active project is just the index 0. Now, I've mentioned this in a previous video. You could just write 0 and it will work perfectly fine. But I like to assign a variable with the value of 0. It just makes it a little bit easier to read. You know, in 2 months' time, when you look back at this script, it's easier just to read from top to bottom and figure out what's going on. You know, if there's a 0 here, then it's just like, well, what does 0 refer to? And then you have to click on this and you can see that it's the active project. Like, oh, I get it now. 0 is the active project. However, if you just write that, you know, quicker. Hopefully that makes sense. And we'll make it local. So if num of selected items is greater than 0, then we proceed. So the way that we facilitate that is we just wrap the rest of the script inside of this if statement. So if we don't have any selected items, this will be false. We'll go to the end, and then the end, and then nothing happens. And it should be pretty obvious to the user why nothing happened. It's like, oh yeah, I need to select something. So they'll just do that. You could put like an error message here. You know, you could do else, and then using the, it's like message box or something. Look it up if you want to go down this path. You can write an error. I'm not going to do that though. I don't really see the point, but you could if you wanted to. Cool. Keep track of running index, so we initialize it with a value of 0. We're going to keep track of the previous track name, and we're going to initialize that with an empty string. So an empty string is just like this. Can't remember if I've done this in a previous video or not, but this is an empty string. And so then when we're in our first iteration of the loop, it's going to be comparing the first item's track's name with this. And obviously it's going to be different. So it's going to reset the previous track name to that track name. And it's going to set this to 1. It happens to already be 1, but that's okay. You can start off with 1, set it to 1. That's fine. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's address this thing. So for I equals 0, remember that indexation in Reaper starts at 0. So when you have 3 tracks selected, this is item number 0, item number 1, item number 2. Okay. So yeah, starting at number 0 all the way up to number of selected items minus 1. Hopefully you remember that thing. You know, in this session, we have 5, but this is going to be the indices 0 to 4, which is a total number of 5, but it's indices 0 to 4. So that's why this is selected items minus 1. do. All right, get a reference to the item. Cool, so that should be get media item. No, this is wrong actually. This will be looking through the whole session. We want, is it selected media? Yes, selected media item. I nearly made a bad mistake. So that one that I was looking at previously, that would just look at every item in the session all already indexed. But what we want is we want to look at only the ones that we've selected. So a different indexation system, if you will. So yeah, this is the selected item. So that's the one we want. Cool. So local item equals, so we pass in the active project. Maybe we'll make this a bit bigger. And then the integer selected item will just be I on every iteration of the loop. Like we're looking at the 0th one first, and then the first, Jesus. We're looking at index 0 first, and then we're looking at index 1 second, and so forth. All right, so get the start position of the item. So that was something like get media item info value, I think. Yes. So we've looked at this one before. Yeah. So you can query the position and you can query the length, and it returns a number. Cool. So we're going to use this twice actually, once here and once here. So start pos is going to be item, and then the thing that we're querying is this D position. Now be careful when copy and pasting from here, because you'll see that I highlighted a space after D position. So that's not going to work. And we can probably demonstrate that if I think I need to, hang on. I need to put an end there, and then if I run it, what is this error saying? Ah. Show me. My screen's too small. Region for track name error, syntax near repo, line 23. It's not really, I think my screen's too small because I'm zooming in the video. Anyway, the reason why it's erroring is this. So I suspect that if I, and this one, comment out that, and there you go. But if I put that space back in, try again. Damn it. Okay. So we take the space out. All right. So we've got this one. Okay. Item length. And then this is D underscore length. We know that from the API, D underscore length, right there. Cool. And then the endpos, local item endpos is equal to the start position plus the length. All right, now we need the parent track. I think there's like get parent track from track. All right, so you need a track to begin with. That doesn't really help. So get media item track. No. Sorry. Highlighted the wrong one. Get media item track. Local track equals item. Now we're still not on the parent track actually, so that'd be the next thing. Get a reference to the items. Sorry, get a reference to the track's parent track if it is not already. So an example of that would be, let's change this slightly. Yeah, let's put these here. Let's say you've got tracks going into a sort of a submix, right? And maybe these two are mixed together. This one's on its own. This one's up here. What we want is we want to be able to highlight these, but when it creates the region, we want it to be looking at this track name, right? Because maybe this has a master EQ, this has got a reverb, this has got a flange. They're doing different things, but they're all part of this chair type B. So that's what we want from that functionality. So we'll come back to that, but that's one of the instances where we need to be specifically getting the parent track. So yeah, let's come back to that. For now, we're just going to run with the track name, and then we're going to expand the script out. So get the track name. How do you do that? Get track name. Cool. That should be good. So there's a success val, and then there's the name. Local track name equals track. Yep, cool. All right, so now we're looking at these cached values, these running values. So let's start doing this. So if track name is the same as previous track name, then we increment running index by 1, or if track name is not equal to previous track name, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but tilde, squiggly tilde equals is how you write not equal to in Lua. So if it's not equal to, set running index to 1. Cool. Running index is running index plus 1, and this is just equal to 1. Right, so that takes care of that stuff there. Next, we need to take note of this track name for use in the next iteration, right? because the next time it goes around, we need to check again if this is the same. But we're never actually updating previous track name. So, whoops. So that's where we do this. We update previous track name for use in the next iteration. And previous track name is track name. Cool. All right, now create the region. Now, what was that? It was add project marker. So that's something that's a bit confusing about Reaper. There are markers like this, and then there are regions, which is what we're creating. But a region is a marker. Sure. So what we're doing is we're going to do add project marker, but we're going to say that it is a region, because a region is a type of a marker. I wish it wasn't, because I find that confusing, but it is. Now, just real quick, you'll see that there's add project marker 2. I really don't like this about the Reaper scripting, but presumably, you know, this one was created and then they want to expand the functionality of it. But instead of updating this one and improving this one, they made a new one, because if they changed this one, everyone who already had working scripts, their scripts might not work anymore. So they make a new one and they just call it add project marker 2. Man, it's really hard to follow and keep track of. But anyway, what I usually do, both of them should work, but they should have something slightly different about them. For instance, this one you can assign a color. That seems to be the only difference. I don't really care about the colors, so maybe I'll just do the old school one, add project marker, and we'll see how we go. If it doesn't work, maybe we'll then do the 2, but it seems like it should do the same. Presumably, they both still work. Yeah, see what happens. Okay, add project marker. So we want to pass in the active project. So Boolean is region. Now you could just type in true, but what I like to do is type out assign a new variable with a value of true and put it in there. That way, later on, when I'm reading back, I'm just like, okay, so the second argument is region, and then, you know, it's obvious that that's what it's doing. Whereas if you just type true, it's not obvious what is true. Like, what is that second argument? What are we setting to true? You know, it slows down your reading process. All right. Number pos is the start pos. End is the end pos. I'm just going to press enter and move this along. You can do that, by the way. I don't know if I really mentioned this properly, but the way scripting languages work is, you know, spaces and character returns are completely ignored by the compiler. So you can press enter here and this still works, because what it's really looking at is the position of this open bracket and the close bracket. Now you wouldn't leave this like this, because that looks super weird, but it would work. So just bear that in mind, I guess. Compilers ignore white spaces and tabs and character returns, but we do those things to make it more readable, right? All right. where are we? String name. Okay, so the name we haven't actually done yet. So we need to build our name. Build our string for the region name. So what it's going to be is, it's going to be track name. And then we're going to insert, so we're going to use track name and then an underscore and then the running index, right? Now you can combine strings to make a longer superstring, and the term for that is concatenating, right? So to concatenate strings together, separate them with a double dot. So what that looks like is track name concatenated with an underscore, which is also concatenated with the running index. So if you can picture what that'll look like, chair type underscore A underscore 1 or 2, etc. So that's our region name. And then we don't really care about the region number. All regions are numbered in Reaper. And I was reading about this before. How this works is if you try and set it to index 0, but index 0 is taken, it's just going to give it a different index. So we're basically ignoring this one. I think you have to give it something, because from memory, if you just pass in, if you don't pass anything in, it errors. 52, yeah, I think that is that. So we'll give it something, and there you go. And you can see that the script worked. Sort of jumped the gun a bit, didn't I? Took a bit of the magic away from the reveal. All right, let's try again. So we're just selecting these three. So it should be 1, 2, 3. Nice. Get rid of those, hold Alt and left click. Now let's try and do it across 2 tracks. So we should get A1 and B1. A1 and B1. Nice. And now let's do it for all. Nice. So B1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, are you not seeing those? Oh damn, sorry. The screen is cropped, isn't it? Ah. My apologies. Can you see it now? There you go. Yeah, my apologies. You weren't seeing those region names at the top. All right, so, but you can see that it's working. You've got B1, 2, 3, 4, and then the numbers reset for A1, A2, etc. Cool. So it works. Very nice. All right, so in the next video, we're going to expand the functionality out a little bit. One thing we didn't do is we didn't take care of the parent track sort of stuff. And then there's a few other things that I like to do in this script, just giving a few more options to the user. But so far, this is a pretty good script. We've made a good start. So hopefully you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next one.